Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the October DRC meeting. The DRC is a subcommittee of the Historic Zoning Commission. This meeting is informal and designed to guide applicants through the process of obtaining a certificate of appropriateness or a COA for projects within the city's historic districts in light of the Historic District Design Guidelines. Applicant participation in this meeting is voluntary but highly recommended. Changes made or suggestions taken by the applicant based on the discussions with the DRC are the applicant's choice, but DRC makes no representation as to whether any changes or suggestions made during the meeting will be approved by the voting body, the Historic Zoning Commission. We have 6 items on this afternoon's agenda. When your item's called, please introduce yourself and generally describe your item in 2 to 3 minutes. We do have a request to go to item number 5 and do it first because there was a scheduling conflict. So let's start with item 5 here, which is that right? Do I have the right item? Ice House? Okay. Discussion of partial demolition and an addition at 251 2nd Avenue South, Old Ice House. Brandon Pretty's the applicant. Mr. Pretty, if you'd like to come on up. What did this say? 2 to 3 minutes. There's a lot of parts to this, so we can be a little flexible.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Had a scheduling conflict with a meeting down in Columbia, so excited about that drive at 5 o'clock. And our owner, Troy Van Leer's on the way.
Okay.
He's stuck in some traffic.
Okay.
So I will do a very quick overview. You all have seen this. I think this is our 4th time we've come back. One of those was a site visit. So have gotten some really good feedback. Appreciate that. I think it's improved the project greatly. We've put much more of an emphasis on really preserving what's there in those historic pieces than I think what some of the first iterations had. Right now, we're preserving about 80% of that footprint, meaning the old ice house and then the chicken plant and the warehouse. As you can see, the blue is that the current jiu-jitsu studio, the non-contributing kind of non-historic piece. So that's really the one big piece we're proposing to replace. And then from a larger scale, on a parking standpoint, we're decreasing the parking demand. We're going from, again, thinking about the jiu-jitsu studio and the office uses above, proposing to replace really all of that with a small boutique hotel. So going from that use, which we're probably talking about 30 plus people, to 16 units in a hotel, which is going to have a much lower demand and a different time demand. So on balance, feel good about what we're presenting, and I think at this point I'll just let y'all answer or ask questions, and I will answer.
Okay. Thank you. Let's hear from Emily with some staff comments, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The building that is located at 251 2nd Avenue South is considered contributing within the National Register. The National Register defines this building as a circa 1890 one-story brick commercial building, which is attached with a circa 1940 concrete block commercial building. The brick section faces both 2nd Avenue South and South Margin Street, while the concrete block section faces South Margin Street. We commend the applicant for incorporating feedback from previous DRC meetings and during the site visit to explore the massing on the building and be sensitive to the adjacent historic buildings that are neighboring the site. Overall, the addition's massing does appear to be subordinate to the existing building and does not appear to overpower the historic rest of the building. As determined by previous meetings, DRC members discussed that the currently proposed portion of the building to be demolished has been extensively altered and is a non-contributing portion of the building. The proposed design of the proposed to be demolished jiu-jitsu studio blends the industrial ice house and the metal previously chicken processing plant, appears to blend both of these buildings together. One comment that staff would like to address is the use of the metal paneling underneath the windows, and these are suggested to be removed as it accentuates the verticality of the building. The alterations that are fronting South Margin Street appears to utilize some of the same openings that were previously utilized for windows and doors based on the historic photos that were provided, which are here. So there are a couple project considerations that others have left in our Building and Neighborhood Services Department on parking and the dumpster location, and we will share those with the applicant after this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anybody want to jump in here? Miss Kathy?
Sure. Thanks so much for giving us a really clear presentation of what you're going for now here on it. Thank you for that, and it just makes me laugh when I hear jiu-jitsu studio and chicken processing plant. My question is,
That's
the
how they
metal,
process the chickens.
the chicken jiu-jitsu people? The metal panels, what was the purpose behind those metal panels that are pretty much accentuating a little verticality into the windows? Is that a decorative fenestration?
Yeah, decorative feature, and that's something we can do some things with brick detailing, other things to kind of de-accentuate the vertical.
Does it occur on any other elevations other than the ones you've presented us?
Now, the only place we've done that is on the new construction. There's not really a precedent within the historic building for that.
Okay, so it's only that one area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's all I have right now.
Okay. Anybody else? Lisa?
Yeah, as to the height, what context are we using for the height comparison? I guess this is a question for staff.
So the existing building height for the middle portion is 36 feet in height, and the portion that is to be reconstructed is 29 feet 4 inches, and then measuring to the top of the parapet of that new building, it is 33 feet in height. So it is lower in height than the existing building that is currently there
I see.
in the middle.
Okay. And I have a question about, I'm sorry, since I don't have my iPad, I can't determine the white part that looks like a connector between the new and the already existing. That-
So
Yeah.
let's see if I can get it. So it is existing here, and so it is just concrete block. And so that is to remain, I would assume, probably some touch-up paint on it, and, but it is remaining.
Correct, and one little piece to add to that, there's I don't know what you call it, some overbuild on the roof. And we had determined, or it has been determined, there were some images there that was something that was done in the late 80s, early 90s, so it's not contributing. We're going to remove that. And if you go in there, the construction, well, there you go, that yellow piece, that's existing, and that'll be removed. It's not historic. And then we'll actually kind of re-roof the existing ice house back to what was there originally, and then a roof again over top of the piece of that's the chicken plant, create a bit of a roof deck, but kind of going back to where things were there historically prior to that roof overbuild thing that happened in the late 80s, early 90s.
So there is like a roof deck aspect here, a
Yes, ma'am.
roof deck?
Yes, ma'am. Got a couple different areas. Yeah, this shows it real well. You can see a couple different areas, and that'll be just some amenity spaces for that hotel area.
So roof decks are not really typical of anything in the area, correct? I mean, that I can think of.
There are a few in the historic district. We have it like on the top of like the 231 building, one on top of I believe it's the 98 East Main building with the restaurant on the corner. There's just very few instances, but there
Harper's
are.
got that one at the corner of Main and First.
Right, so there are a couple, but there's just few.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Sure. Go ahead.
I think you did a really good job of putting pieces together using most of the original, but making it look collected over time. So I think this is just really, you've done a really great job fitting it into the, the size requirements, scale, and fitting it in with historic. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So this, one of the elements here I want to talk about is this, I assume it's an elevator or like a stair egress kind of tower thing.
A little bit about, yeah, both.
I mean, how, I see in some of the renderings that it's probably going to be visible from both South Margin and Second. Is there, have you explored some other places that it could land? If that, that's the only thing I see in terms of how our guidelines outline additions. They're supposed to be to the back and minimally visible. And that particular piece, especially, we've had similar conversations at the factory, I think, with a couple different things, whether it was hotel egress or most recently the parking garage. So love to hear some on that. And then I think this image is very helpful, but I'd like to, when you come back, it seems like you've got all this in formats that you might be able to walk us through, like three-dimensionally from this view. Here's the piece coming off here. I think there's some more coming off the back, but you're leaving a parapet and infilling between an existing parapet. Is that true? There's kind of on the back there.
Yeah.
There's a parapet and you're building behind it or something. That's where I'm not totally clear. I
Basically,
think
you
it'd be
want a
helpful.
view of that, but you want it from the back, so you kind of have that same.
Well, yeah, I
level
want to
of-
see maybe here's what it is
Yeah.
today. Here's the couple elements coming off.
Okay,
And then here's us adding each piece back to get to that green view that we were just looking at.
okay.
Because there's a bunch of different forms kind of superimposed, and I want to see what is original back over there, because there is some original on the back, like this gray mass with the garage door in it. I think part of that's existing, right?
The gray, yeah, that whole piece is existing.
But you're demoing a little bit behind it.
That's right. That's,
Okay,
and that's
yeah.
where that overbuild piece I was describing kind of carries through.
Okay.
So we're
So it's all
removing
overbuild, is the only thing coming off is just that overbuild.
on that side, yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, just, again, I was looking at it, I'm like, well, I'm not exactly clear on
Yep.
what's going, and see, it's area of overbuild to be removed, there's, it's very three-dimensional, so.
Yeah. No,
Um,
we can absolutely show that.
I agree with staff on this metal panel thing, but there are whole buildings on this site that are all metal panel. So I'm not convinced that this hotel section, if it's got, it's got some parts and pieces and pilasters, if there were a section of the building that were metal. I'm trying to remember what the guidelines recommend. I think they recommend any new construction have, it's like, brick or stone for commercial buildings, isn't it? Or maybe I'm thinking of signage guidelines.
It is brick or stone. We'll have to double check. I think whenever we were looking at the previous parking garage and new hotel at a different site, because it was in a different overlay, there were certain material requirements.
Okay.
But we'll double check into the material requirements for this.
I guess what I'm getting at is, I think it might be a miss for this hotel to just be a big brick mass and it looked like this brand new pristine brick thing. I'm like, well, this property has more kind of variety and character than that. So if this were just a big brick pilaster thing, I'd go, well, it's new. It doesn't look like it has all the things that go with this site. Do you have something, Kathy?
Yeah, that was why I was asking you, where is this element found elsewhere? If it becomes part of a repetitive theme that kind of unifies it as a fenestration that you're going to use. I don't have a problem with it being vertical either. I don't think it adds or detracts to massing and height and all of that, but it makes more sense if it's repetitive or has a rhyme and a reason.
So I misunderstood your question. I was thinking specifically of some sort of infill between windows. You're right, the metal panel, and design-wise, the metal panel was chosen to tie it back to, there are some similar areas where we've got different types of metal panel in the old warehouse on the site. So that's what that was
Good.
intended to do. Maybe that's a little
And,
better.
and I think that's a great design element for you to have it as an infill between the windows. I'm not questioning that, but it's just as a material as a whole.
Yeah.
I like to see the rhyme. If it's there on our site, to me, that's just adding another material
Yeah,
that would be foreign, and that would be not in line with the guidelines. So
Kinda
it
show
makes
the-
sense if it's got a precedence, got a history.
gotcha.
Is this, no, the warehouse building is shown on page 2 as brick or red, and on page 3 is
Yeah,
this
that was
kind of vertical metal panel. It
That's
is,
a
it's metal today.
correct, and it'll stay metal. That is actually something I saw in the rendering on Tuesday morning.
That's why I was like, man,
Yeah.
we took family pictures there. I'm pretty sure it's metal.
Yeah,
Long
now
time
that-
ago.
And that'll be, I mean, we'll certainly have to do repair, maybe some limited
Okay.
replacement of the metal panel, but that's going to remain as metal panel.
And the caveat to all my comments is it still has to meet, zoning, which has their own stuff, their own requirements, and then the guidelines, we would, without really good reason, wouldn't want you to depart from that. But I don't see that you've got so much variety. I don't want it to be so kind of sterile materiality wise that it's just like, oh, there's a brand new thing appended to the end of this. Brian, did you have something?
I would say overall, it's the best rendering I've seen for the site. And it seems to maintain and preserve the historic elements of the building, even revealing some places that has been covered up over time. As far as the brick material, I mean, if you look at the photograph or the rendering that's before us, that one right there, you see that the ice house is brick, and then you've bookended on the other side, on the very other end with brick. And I don't see how that would not be an appropriate material for bookending that site. I do agree with everyone else's, at least assessment of that corrugated kind of tin under the windows or between windows and the brick portion. It just seems a little contrived, like we're really trying hard to bring another element in, from the corrugated part of the other buildings and let them be what they are and the building can be what it is. But I noticed that recently I've been going through some early minutes for the city of Franklin, and I found that they had a fire district in 1896, and it mainly concerned livery stables that were on Main Street. But they had to use a corrugated material on those livery stables. So I think the corrugated tin or the corrugated material goes back quite a ways in Franklin as a material that was used.
Okay.
Just to bring that up.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank
Now,
you.
And our intent was, and you can kind of see that that's what's facing margin, that gray piece we were looking at. So probably creating a little clearer connection between that and then where we're trying to bring that in to the new construction piece. We'll think through that a little bit more. That's interesting about the fire district.
Anything else? Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
I would say the hotel element, I don't think it's the brick. In my mind, it's more the massing of it that just brings that Main Street look instead of anything that harkens back to this. I think overall, some of the elevations are just wonderful. It's that the one where it says that the proposed, they're not numbered, but it's got a little thing that says new construction area. If
Page
the-
7, maybe, page 7?
It says rear view.
Next one, right there. Is that the one you're talking about? Or the one
Yes.
before it? That one? Okay.
If there was something that could just bring it down a little in style, I would say that would be a win. I'm having, that will have to go through codes. I'm having trouble thinking that there's going to be less traffic when I see all this that's going to be redone, which I assume is into other businesses. So all of ours has to meet codes. And I think some of the rooftops are real successful downtown, but if this is one that created a lot of noise, it would not be successful because there are still residences around this, so.
Sure.
But some downtown don't create noise, so if that could be clarified.
No, that's good to consider, and we'll clarify that. And there's no intent for any sort of, major
Amplified.
assembly. Yeah, we're not having pop-up rooftop concerts or anything like that. That's not the character of what our
Right.
owner has envisioned for this at all. To be sure I'm clear, with your comments on the hotel piece, so it sounds like that needs to really kind of be simplified and
That's
stripped
what-
down a little bit more to get more in a factory type of aesthetic.
That's what I think,
Okay.
if it could repeat some, we've lost the Lily Mills, we've lost several buildings in that area that might provide some inspiration.
Yeah, and we had looked at you're talking about the old, kind of the old brick factory. We looked at that actually as we were doing this, so maybe we'll go back and look a little closer at some of the detailing and see how they handled that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Right. When I'm looking at the second sheet, which is basically the aerial view with the green and the purple, where is the hotel in this image?
It is the area in the blue overlay, all the way to the right there, yeah.
The purple?
Yeah,
Okay. When I look at this building, where is the front? It's kind of all the way around. So, to your point, Tyler, about looking at the stairwells and additions, whatever, to the rear of the property, we don't have really a rear of the property anyway. So I think considering that height and the materiality on that is something to consider. And is the hotel the tallest building portion?
no, the tallest building will be where it's got the warehouse to remain in the foreground.
And that's the existing,
Yeah, that's the existing plant, the existing kind of warehouse chicken plant. That'll be the
Okay,
tallest
good.
piece. And that's what we wanted to outline, that elevation kind of shows, the top of that
Yes.
is at 36, and we kept 3 feet under that on the high point of the hotel.
but to Mary's point too, even though its height is lower than that building, it's the massing on that. I think that grabs your eye on it. And you do go right down the road there too. But thank you for clarifying that's the hotel piece.
Okay, Lisa?
And then finally, page 7 again, please. Also, to Mary's point regarding the context, which is the a factory. The balconies, are they functional balconies or just
We're envisioning
decorative?
those as kind of Juliet balconies, so those doors will open, but there's not any sort of, I don't think we're gonna have a big overhang.
Yeah.
We've kind of gone back and forth with iterations. We're pretty tight on clearances on the site, so I know those are showing some shadow lines for balconies. I think our last conversation,
Yeah.
we were considering pulling those in.
Yeah, the balconies to me seem an outlier in the context of what we're talking about. That's just my opinion.
It does say residential instead of industrial, but yeah, it's on the side too. So, Brian?
So, Brandon, I wanted to ask, so how far does that hotel building sit back from South Margin? Because I think when we're seeing these images, they're just on a 2D, so they look like they're all the way up to the road. How far does that set back from West Margin?
On the site plan, it's set back really even off the face of the adjacent plant. It's about, I think it's 20 feet, Aaron, is that right? About 20 feet back, so yeah, you can kind of see there where that setback is. It's most of the depth of the warehouse building, or at least a big chunk of that depth.
Yeah, well, if you bring that back to us and something like that, if you could try to show it so that we get that sense of it, it might help with that massing. It helps with the massing too, that the smaller portion of the building of its width is facing South Margin, and the longest part runs through the driveway.
Yeah.
So that brings the point, where is the front of the building? Where does the front, where do you enter?
We've got a few. So, and because of the multi-uses, and really just the function of it, the entrance piece is actually gonna be that back drive as it functions now. So we'll have that canopy, but that'll really be the entrance to the retail portion of it. The hotel entrance is further along the side on that back. We're still working through the site to see if, I don't think we're gonna have room for a drop off on that short side. So, and if you go to probably the first page, on the right-hand side there, that's where we'll have an entry into the hotel. And they'll, let's see, I'm trying to see if there's a better view. So the entry to the hotel, basically you'll enter that rear drive, for lack of a better word, because again, this building's got 4 outward-facing elevations. That's functionally because of parking and really, it's not feasible to have an entrance off of South Margin or even Second. I think it would be pretty disruptive to surrounding traffic and buildings. You'll access everything from that drive.
And what are the heights? I'm looking at that, I'm still in this hotel building, and I'm seeing that overall to the top of the parapet is 33 feet. What are your proposed heights for your first and second floors?
First floor, and it's relatively tight because we want to not make it any taller than we have to. Off the top of my head, first floor, 14 feet? I think the FFE on that second floor, I believe, is at 14.
So the second floor is at 14.
Yeah.
What is if the
And then
first
the-
is at 14 or
Well,
taller?
I guess the height,
Floor to
first floor
floor.
is 0, and then that height, the second floor FFE is at 14. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm wondering how much room do you have to bring the building down a bit? If, just playing off of what Mary was talking about, massing and scale.
Honestly, from the functionality of what you've got to do for a 2-story building today, not a lot. We've kept it as tight as we can. We could potentially bring some of that down, maybe a foot, maybe a little bit. I'm thinking in particular of that parapet and how that details out. I mean, you can see it kind of comes up and then the roof is set back. There may be a little bit of room to soften that. But from a functional standpoint, we've tried to keep that as low as we can.
Is your parapet all the way out to the walls, or does it set back off of the actual wall at the top?
At the top, that parapet is all the way out to the face. Where that 33 is, that's out to the face of the building, and then the roof kind of sets. So if the parapet's here, that metal roof kind of sets back in that a little bit.
So given that, is it completely covering up all your mechanicals, or could you set that parapet back further? Is it just covering up mechanicals? Is that all it's doing?
To be perfectly honest, we haven't gotten there yet to where
Okay.
we're going to start spotting those. That's what we're envisioning.
Because that could help.
Yeah, that's,
All of that helps.
yes, yeah.
Right.
No, we'll work through that and, where those units are going to set. The idea is, for those units to sit behind it and it cover those. Again, trying to keep everything as minimal as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And to the point of massing and scale, how many retail spaces are there? How many I imagine there's a restaurant and then
No
no
restaurant.
restaurant? Okay.
Potentially a small coffee shop, but again,
And-
he's way too early to have people sign
Okay,
up. We're
and
looking at
then
different folks, but
you're-
I can tell you no restaurant.
Okay. And then you're envisioning the hotel being how many rooms?
17.
17.
Small boutique
Okay.
hotel.
So it's small
Very
scale.
much,
That's good.
very much on purpose, and again, his
That's great.
concept, his vision for this is something small, boutique, curated.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at this image here on the screen too and noticed there's not really a parapet on the front, right? In this image. I think that you can tell from this image to the next one that there's a difference in scale. You can almost see it. And so you might look at that side elevation on page 7 that we've referenced. It's got parapet all the way across that one. And it may be that you don't need parapet all the way around. Maybe that center section
Yep.
is one that has a parapet, or maybe that's the gabled and the back is not gabled, and it starts to feel a little more warehousey. But maybe you don't need a parapet all the way around. It's just I think it could do a lot, especially addressing the corner. I'm concerned that if there's no parapet wall in the front, but there is the side, then we're going to be looking at the end of a parapet wall at the front. So if that's held back some, yeah, it makes that corner at least feel like it's almost as low as that white box on the left there, which I think it takes some mass out without you having to change anything in terms of volume inside. It's just it's a visual perception thing.
You're talking about that corner, like south margin and the.
Yeah, right here where I'm
the
looking
one
at
to
the left
far
side of
left
this,
here,
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think if even both sides did that and the center was maybe popped up there, then it looks like a parapet, not a building that's, what is that, 29'4"? It'll all of a sudden look like a building that's 26 and has a parapet at 29'4", which is a different thing, right? So, Brian, did you have one?
Yeah, just one last thing, that to me, this isn't Main Street, and it's not the factory. You know, it's its own special, place that it was, the old ice house, and there was a flour mill there at one time, then a chicken processing. So it's always been something that's kind of industrial for that site. And when I first saw that little pop-up, and I guess that's a stairwell that goes up to that roof area.
That piece, that vertical piece, yes.
Yeah, I call it a pop-up,
It's a-
because it kind of looks like a pop-up to me.
Yeah, it's a stairwell, and then we'll have an elevator too.
And when I first saw that, it was just a little, it was a little jarring on that part. But then I also remembered that a lot of these ice plants had cooling towers, and they were usually located on the top of the buildings. And it kind of looked like something like that as a pop-up. So, I mean, that might work in this location, when I would not be for that on the main square of Main Street.
Yeah.
That you could see that on the top of a building. So I just want to say that
No, that's,
that I might be able to support this on that edge of town in an industrial area where I couldn't on Main Street.
Thank
no, I like that. That's very helpful. I like that idea about the tower in an ice house. And Tyler, your question a little bit ago, we've tried to set that back again. You're looking at the elevation, it's always going to be pretty visible. We've set it back, I want to say 30-plus feet off of South Margin, so it won't be as visibly imposing that vertical shaft from Second or from Margin as it is in the elevation. And it's tough because we're balancing, visibility against some function and accessibility requirements and needs. But we'll soften that maybe, and I'm going to do some research. Tonight I get to learn about cooling towers for ice houses.
And then,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair, right next door, are two houses. One is an early showplace of Franklin, the Rainey House, and then the next one's probably 1929, 30 something. But I think it also, and it's showing, but to show a little bit more context, and it's always been a height variation there, so I'm not suggesting that, but I do like the comments that have been made about getting it to come down a bit with the parapet wall or whatever.
is the Rainey House the one on Second? Is the Rainey House the one on Second or the, okay.
No,
Or is it
It's
the
on
one
Margin.
Margin.
yeah, or First. Does it come on around to First?
Can you zoom in on the key plan there? There's one directly next to the hotel site here.
No, it's on
It's
First.
right on South Margin there. There's one, and then when you turn the corner, there's, the driveway access is the back
Right
of the
there.
one that's on.
There it is.
Yeah,
Okay,
Right there.
yep.
yeah. Okay. And there's a house right behind the ice house, too. There's a house right behind the ice house as well,
That's right.
just north.
Two.
Okay. All right, anything else, anybody? Yes, ma'am.
Brandon, if you would, when you come back, when you talk about, like when we look at the aerial site view, page 2, like new construction area, let us know hotel. Let us know what these new construction areas are.
Okay.
That would help me.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know you stair elevator tower is a tough one because you got a change in elevation in that particular building from the floors. And so maybe even pivoting it, I don't know how everything works out, but you change the direction of it, the elevator stair tower, and it might give a less bolder, massive look to it. So
Okay.
when you're playing around with the ice house, consider that too.
Thank you. All right,
And then
Brandon.
finally,
Yes, ma'am.
just some actual pictures of the context,
Yeah.
like Mary was mentioning the residential component, and I think for most of us, actual pictures of the surrounding areas is really helpful.
Okay,
Thank you.
absolutely.
All right. Now we're done with you.
You sure?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
Appreciate
again.
it.
Thank you
Thanks.
for letting me go a little early.
All right. Item number 1. Feel like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. All right, discussion of site alterations walkway at 936 Fair Street. Suzanne, how do you say your last name?
Groupie.
Groupie?
I'm a groupie.
You're a groupie. Okay. All right, if you'll give us an overview here of your project, please.
Yes, and I just need to preface this whole situation explaining that I had only been in the house for 2 days when it was discovered that I needed a new main water line. So the yard was ripped up. Then we discovered that there was an issue with the sewage line, day 3. I mean, I can't make this stuff up. I was so underwater, and then day 4, my basement flooded. So I was very frazzled and leaning on others for advice, and the yard was torn up, and it was kind of pointed out to me that if I wanted to replace the walkway, this would be the time to do it. And the walkway was somewhat in disrepair. It did have several cracks in it, so it wasn't like the perfect walkway. And I apologize. I honestly didn't think I could do whatever. I did ask several people. My realtor's husband, who I believe sat on this very committee, and it's his brother-in-law. And we did ask him, and he said, no, walkways are not under their purview. And then I reached out to an architect that I have on retainer, and he suggested the material that we're using. We actually brought I brought one of the bricks. Maybe I didn't need to do that. And, there it is. So I didn't want you to think that I just thought I could just rip it up and do whatever willy-nilly, that I didn't put thought and some research into it. I had no idea it was now under your purview as well. So I think that kind of surprised all of us that were working on the project. So our apologies. I just wanted to start with that. So I did buy this house that was restored, and they put those like brick veneers, as you can see on the front porch. And so we wanted something that would kind of lend itself more to that. It did look more historic than the aggregate. I kind of did a little research on that. It looks like that was obviously not something that was truly historic, and it's been around for, 20, 30 years or something. So we thought and there was another neighbor that did put actual brick pavers down the street. I think it was 724 Fair Street. So I took a picture of that. I didn't include that in this, though. So we honestly thought we were doing something that would lend itself to more of a historic element. So, and then the architect that I reached out to, this is what he recommended, and he had done it, Danny and Teresa Anderson had done it on Winslow, and he just thought it would be a great look with the house. So that's kind of that's where we are. when We
Okay.
got the stop work.
So what is that material? Is it an actual brick, or is it a
So,
permeable paver?
Do we
or-
want to show it? I brought one. It's
Okay.
very heavy. So I'm proud of myself I could carry it. But this is my landscaper, so we were going to do this permeable paver.
Okay.
And, I mean, you've done it. You want to tell them what other places
It's
you've done?
a Belgard Aqua Brick. It's made for permeable paver applications.
And you've done it in multiple projects in
Well,
Franklin area.
what we've done, what I did locally nearby was Fair Park Court. We did 3 of the driveways and walkways out of regular pavers. I did, before we started this project, I'd asked the developer of that that area, if walkways were under the purview
Of this,
of,
this committee.
right, and the answer I was given was no. So, and I assumed that that was good information. But no, I have not done the Aqua Brick in downtown or in the historic area, but I've seen that it has been done a lot. And I've used this product many times.
Okay.
Just not in the historic district.
Perfect. All right, let's hear from staff on their kind of analysis here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The property at 936 Fair Street is a contributing property within the Hinchyville National Register Historic District. The proposal is to replace the existing non-historic aggregate concrete walkway with a brick herringbone walkway. The guidelines recommend using sidewalk materials that were historically typical, such as concrete, brick, and stone, and the material is appropriate per the guidelines recommendation. However, upon further review, a front patio has been added to the right wing in front of the right wing of the building, as well as the replacement/addition of the foundation of the front porch without approval.
I didn't do that. I bought it that way. Just want you to know that.
It appears that the foundation was previously a concrete material and the brick in a herringbone pattern has been installed. The guidelines recommends preserving and maintaining original concrete, brick, or wooden stairs, and if needed, repair or replacement of the original wooden, brick, or concrete stairs with matching materials. And more information is needed to determine if the original porch material is concrete or not. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anybody have any thoughts on this one? Brian?
I'm going to go. I'm sorry to hear about the troubles you've had since buying your
I
old
haven't
house.
even mentioned, that's just a few. I won't
Well.
even, it would take longer than 3 minutes.
So, it's a great old house. I mean, I've known some of the previous owners that had it, and it's been loved over many, many years. I would say as far as brick pavers in that herringbone pattern, that is appropriate for historic Franklin. But I would say that's more of a brick material. So what I'm seeing there in that paver is much larger than you would find in a standard brick. And I think you would be better to serve, the house would be better served if you had a traditional brick size for your herringbone pattern, rather than the paver. So, and that's probably is that made of concrete?
It is.
The other question I had you decided whether for your filling your joints, to do that with sand or with concrete?
We had talked about doing that with it's probably a year, maybe 2 years old. It's called Nitro Sand. It's an Alliance product. It's permeable, it would work with the permeable paver system. So, fairly new, but it's been used, I mean, near constantly since it came out. So it's a good product.
And as far as the brick patio portion for the stoop, I mean, that's kind of a highly unusual application, for a type stoop like that. But I think that's something for the board to consider, since it's been recently done.
How did they get away with doing that? You guys didn't stop them on that? That's interesting.
Yes, it didn't get caught, which happens. There's no Metro Historic Police yet. We're trying to get a grant.
So on the right, Elizabeth has it pulled up. That is from January of 2021. And on the left-hand side, that is the photo that was submitted of the concrete aggregate walkway. And so, looks like some of the bushes were removed, which the commission doesn't review landscaping like that. But it does look like there has been a patio installed in front of that front area.
Yeah, we
Welcome
can,
to inherit.
yeah, that's something that staff can give you some guidance on, what next steps are for that. It's not, you may have to come back and see the commission at some point for that, but in terms of the walkway, I do agree with Brian that a traditional brick would be more appropriate. We also tell people they can use stone or concrete. The exposed aggregate, yes, it kind of dates itself to what, 70s, 80s, some in the 90s. So that's not listed in our guidelines, but the stone and brick and kind of traditional concrete. And there's some concretes that are more appropriate than others in terms of color and finish. So anybody else? Lisa?
As to the unapproved patio or whatever, it's really not that visible, and I understand how these things happen, but we're here to discuss the walkway. And the sample picture that you provided is, it seems sort of a copycat of actual brick. And so I agree with Tyler that a real brick would be more consistent. And we don't have any early photos of this home at all? No? Okay. That's my only comment.
Holly?
Hi, I think the herringbone pattern matching the porch looks nice in the like the pattern, but I think the color not being the same as the stoop, like, to me, that's kind of worse than the size, even though I think, I agree that more of a brick size would be better, at least if it were some sort of paper that looked brick, at least if it were the same color, like more of a reddish, I think it would look a lot, like it would blend a lot better. But I do think that it looking like it's an extension of this stoop would be better than the different color of the, of the papers.
So am I going to have to redo the stoop that I inherited, that they did without your permission?
I don't know how that works. Like I said, we'll have to let staff probably check with other departments that aren't here. We don't, like I said, we don't have a historic police. I don't know how that works, so.
It'll have to come before the commission. You'll just have to have this photo in and kind of just have kind of the front walkway and that side patio, and you'll just bring it forward whenever you come forward with this front walkway. You can have it all in one application.
Yeah, okay. Yes, Kathy?
So in that image right there, is that the actual brick on the table that you've laid into the herringbone pattern? Okay. And your intention was to use that brick and leave the porch as it is? Okay.
And when you seal it, it does look more like,
It's brownishy, yeah.
well, I mean,
It's, to me, it's still a commercial product in like driveways, parking lots. And I think the size, I think we're spot on about the size, so I think you should do a traditional brick. Is it that important that it is permeable? I mean, that's a specialty feature of this particular product that's on the table right there.
okay, so full disclosure, I'm hoping to do some work in the backyard, but my contractor, and I don't know if the architect was there, but the contractor did come forward to your committee and ask like what we were allowed to do. So we've scanned the home, we've done a survey. We're looking to see how much land we are able to build on. And so I think we thought that doing permeable too could also, because if we do, cement or, if we do cement or brick, then, then we're we're not freeing up that square footage too.
That's usually why it's used in
Yeah.
parking lots and driveways
Okay.
and such. But for a front entry sidewalk, I think it's a bit too industrial. So that would be my recommendation, to go back to
Okay.
a typical brick.
Okay.
Thank you.
My comment would be, with the work being done on the house, that is going to, in my mind, devalue that type of sidewalk that we're used to seeing in the parking lots, would devalue the sensitivity of the project, whereas real brick would add to it.
Yeah, I like the real brick idea. I
So
like that.
that would be my comment.
Okay.
And may, in my mind, provide some, what's the word I'm trying to say? Some more sympathy to the house, to this brick that's already been done that isn't right either, by having the sidewalk be something that's very sensitive. It takes away a little bit from what's already been done.
Okay. Brian, do you have something else?
Yeah, just what I would like to know, which would be very helpful for me, when the patio comes back before us, is to know from some expert, if that's possible to do, if you remove, how easily can that be removed? You know, the actual pavers that are on the stoop or the patio? And what kind of damage would that do to the concrete beneath it? So that's something I think would be important to know.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Any other specific questions you have for us? Okay, thank y'all. Have a good evening. Item number 2, discussion of alterations accessory structure at 720 West Main. Brett Gardner. Good evening.
Good evening. It is.
It is evening. Art, if you want to give us a
Yes, a
the
synopsis.
latest and greatest.
I can talk loud. I don't want to blame anybody out. Last time we were here, we had proposed a garage door change on the accessory dwelling, as well as a parking pad to the right. We've kind of thrown off the parking pad, kind of discarded that, and are focusing on the garage door, a different door. And the previous door was a big 10-foot arched antique door, single entry door out, that we didn't get approved. So in taking your guys' guidance, we went back and have actually found a carriage house. It's a double door, but it's their carriage house doors that if you would just put 4 hinges and a doorknob, and that's a different color, of course. If you'll click the next picture, you'll kind of see it. What? Did you, well, the one, is that the one I submitted with the project? It wasn't. No, it's, you can see it's the same, essentially it's the same door, it's just 2 doors with hinges and a doorknob, but there's, the right entry is the open door. That's what we're proposing. Did you not send them the?
Is it the first document, this proposed one here?
Yeah, right there. There it is, right there. So that would be the new door on the garage. While we were doing this, we started talking with building codes folks. We did find out, because of the proximity of that garage with the garage of the house that's in back of ours on Fair Street, that currently that garage, the garages to each other are fire hazards because of the proximity. The ways to fix that, when we were talking with the building codes people, are to the left wall, as we look at the picture, the inside and outside need to have the 30-minute fire retardant boarding put on it to start with for code approval. And the second piece that was part of that conversation was the overhangs that are considered, because they're this far, if you go back to the original picture and then back to that picture, the overhangs are considered projectiles in a current situation in a fire. So we're learning. So the suggestion was, if you just bring the overhangs in flush with the sides of the garage, then that would likely pass the building code inspection. Now, they couldn't do it, but as you can see right there, the overhangs, right there in the top picture, those are considered projectiles. And obviously, the codes have changed since 1930 when these were built, but that was what we were told by the building codes person we spoke with. So the rendition you see with the new door also has the overhangs, not that one, the overhangs retracted, or what that would look like in the final version. I know there's a lot of pictures in there. That right there. You can see where there's no overhangs there. That's what we are proposing. That door, as well as us bringing the overhangs in flush with the sides of the garage.
Okay.
One, to meet codes that we, and two, to eliminate a fire hazard.
Okay. Let's hear from staff. Please.
We'd like to thank the applicants for returning to another DRC, as they're requesting 2 alterations within this application: the replacement of the pull-up garage door with a carriage-style door and shortening the overhang on the building. The applicant has noted that in order to meet building fire code, the overhang of the building would need to be shortened. So this is a circa 1940 frame contributing garage. For the door alteration, it is unknown if the existing door is the original door on the building, as the guidelines would recommend to preserve and maintain original entrance locations and elements such as original doors. However, the new proposed door is similar to other carriage-style doors on structures within the district and does appear appropriate for an accessory structure. For the overhang alteration, BNS has confirmed the proposed interior changes would require the building to meet fire code. However, the distance of the structure from the adjacent property lines were not provided to verify the necessary alterations. The request by the applicant is to shorten the overhang. This would not preserve the historic architectural details and would not be recommended unless otherwise recommended or required by code. Additional considerations and questions to explore would be to reduce the overhang on only one side of the accessory structure to be code compliant on the necessary side, as well as providing the exact measurement of the overhang reduction to be included in future applications. So we'd appreciate discussion of the proposed door design and the impact of the overhang shortening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone want to start us off here? Okay, thank you. Kathy, go ahead.
I think the door is lovely. I think you've done a good job of finding a good look appropriate to the style of the little garage. As far as the overhang goes, I would find out exactly what the requirement would be for code, if it would maybe project a little bit. What is that exact requirement? Lopping it off. I love the image where you just marked it out. Let's get it done, see what it looks like, and I appreciate the image that we have up there. It's very helpful, but I would want to know just how much, since our guidelines are asking you to keep that overhang to preserve the integrity of it. However, if code can give you an exact how much overhang, I would like to see that.
Thank you. Go ahead. You have a comment?
When I was speaking with the man at Codes, he said it would have to be flush with the side of the garage,
Okay.
but only on that one side. The other side we could leave long. And that's,
Well, I have a question. So if that is acceptable, if the former picture is acceptable for building codes, is it acceptable for the design review committee?
I think that's what we're discussing. We're going to hear from
Yeah.
some differing opinions, I would guess. Let's see what Brian has to say.
So they're telling you that there would be, it's not a shortened overhang, there is no overhang
On the one side,
on the one side.
correct.
I'd like to know more about that, and like staff asked about setbacks from the property line and from the other garage. And do you plan to use this as a garage?
It'll be an accessory dwelling.
Oh, it will be.
We'll continue to, whether it's a mother-in-law apartment, that type thing.
And that's one of the reasons code is requiring
Correct.
the fire rated wall. It's not because it's going to be a garage use.
Correct.
Because it has a detached dwelling use in its change.
Yes.
Did you ever investigate, like on that garage door, if there were any type of hinges, former hinges that were ghosts of hinges that were on the sides of the jambs, or?
You asked us that last time, and no, there aren't any, and, no, there are not any.
So how old do you think that door is that's there on the structure?
I don't think it's the original one.
So it looks to be wooden, the whole thing is made of wood, and it's one that you physically have to grab the handle at the
Correct.
bottom
The
and
rails are on the
pull up.
inside, correct.
And it pulls up in sections, not just in one whole thing that goes up at one
Correct.
time.
It's a fold, 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 fold.
Okay. You know, looking at the structure and the age of the house, my first assumption would be that you probably had a carriage-style door when that garage was first built, and that this may have been added in the 40s, 50s, something like that. I don't know. But that's what I would assume, and I could be wrong. But I think what you are proposing is appropriate for the historic zoning district, or the historic zoning overlay. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll jump in and talk a little about this overhang. I think our guidelines are pretty clear that we'd like for you to keep them. Now, I would go back and explore some more about this fire rating stuff. BNS isn't here to comment, which is Building Neighborhood Services, but from my experience, I mean, done lots of townhouse work and multifamily stuff, and there's ways to build stuff right on property lines if it's built a certain way. And overhangs can't go across the property line. I think that's the question with surveys and things, but projections into setbacks are in the IRC, International Residential Code, which is Franklin's on. I'd look closely at that because there's ways to do this without lopping it off.
We would love to keep
I'm pretty sure.
I have that pulled up at my house, that what you're referring to.
Yeah.
And I think because McEwen built both of those, that they were good friends, and those garages are like right up next to each other, and there's
Sure.
a skinny fence between them.
Yeah.
And I think he just said that because there's not 5 feet from the garage to the fence, that's why he
Right.
wanted that.
Yeah, but look in there for like zero lot line construction, things like that. It has to do with percentage of openings, materials used. There's just a couple things, but
Okay.
I mean, people build townhouses that share walls, and those are separate units, just like this. They want it separate from the one next to it, and people do it every day. So there's ways to do it, just like they've asked for skinning the inside and outside with fire retardant, probably sheathing.
Yeah.
They oftentimes they'll make you wrap the whole eave in that and go a certain distance into the roof. And I could get into the code stuff, but that's not our purview. But look at the IRC. There's ways to do this without lopping it off. You know, and all that's well and good, but I would do the research and take those code sections in and show it to, because really the inspector has the final say, but if you can show him where it's in Franklin's adopted codes, then at least you have a better chance of maybe convincing them that I'm meeting this code. Because it really is their discretion, right, in some regards. So look at that. If there's a way, what I would want you to do is come back and say, we've explored all this, here's the code sections, but this is what Franklin said in response to those. The only way we can use this is to lop off this much, and we want to know an exact amount in all the metrics based on property lines from surveys. All that needs to be, very clearly outlined. Then I think we would consider something as dramatic as lopping off an eave on one or both sides. I mean, that's a lot. Kathy?
Also, too, Mr. Chair, sometimes, we're talking about this detailed area, and sometimes these officiating folks have actual details, design-drawn details that are standard details that they prefer us to look at and to use under certain conditions like this. So if you look in the IBC and find some of these categories or sections that talk about this with this zero line, property line thing, they may refer you to other sections where there are some actual details already drawn of this to give you some give everyone guidance on this. I know they do it for driveways and, there's sets of standards that are out there. So it'll help us make a decision to see how close we can blend zoning with our, set of standards as well and still make it safe, because we have to have it safe.
Yep. Anybody else? Mary?
Well, I agree with what's been said, and I do not know the international building codes for sure, but sometimes there is mercy on contributing buildings as far as fire goes. I've worked with some where there was some leniency because they were a contributing building.
Sure.
And are the hinges on the garage doors functional that are being shown? Yes,
The proposed, yes.
okay.
Well, yes.
If those
open and shut.
particular hinges are
Yes.
functional, I'm all in.
They are functional.
If they're just decorative and there's really another hinge.
Pasted on, yeah.
I would be wanting the real hinge to show.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
think you would need a third hinge on this door. You would need one at the top, the middle, and the bottom.
It'll work with two for a little while,
Yeah.
a couple weeks.
Well, in their defense, some of the other images show 3 on each side.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
I've just seen a bunch of garage doors with real hinges and then these,
Just pasted on.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the
And usually
actual
those are the overhead type.
There's
Yeah.
the one with the 3.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we get it got squished. It happens. Computer jitters. Okay. Thank y'all very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Item number 3, discussion of alterations on a principal structure at 900 Fair Street. Stephen Scott. Come on up. I feel like you've been at every meeting for 8 months.
It's on my calendar to come every month, whether I'm needed or
Well,
not.
thank you.
So I got the feedback from last month, and of course, just to recap a little bit, trying to take the green awning down and give us something more presentable and more aesthetically pleasing than this green awning. And last month, what I presented was more of a limestone bulky brick, and I believe the feedback I got was a little much on the bulk. So we looked at options of what we could do to I guess, rein that in a little bit and still make it more palatable, I guess, for us. So if you could go to the actual, that's the latest idea that we would like to get your feedback on. The house has those arches all the way around the left side. There's 3 arches on that left porch. There's 3 arches on the right porch, and the only one they didn't arch when they did the skinning, the veneer of the brick in the 30s was the center, and then of course it doesn't look to us very attractive with just taking the awning off and having that square lintel. This to me looks and feels like it should have looked when they did the renovation. These are, of course, my renderings, AI renderings of what this should look like. And you can see several of the that's on Main Street, and you can see the ones from another one on Main Street, and Fair Street, that's across the street and down one house. That's very, very similar to what we're trying to do. That's kind of the inspiration of what we're trying to do right there.
The same with him?
That's, I'm sorry.
The Whitney?
Whitson's house, yes. So I'd like to get your feedback on this new direction. The house, the keystone and the two side pieces there, we do have limestone foundation, so it's be repeated. Like I said, the arches are all over the house. If you look to that's on the left side of the house. There's arches of varying radiuses everywhere, you know, all the way around. So I don't think this is something new to the house. It's just something that would be, I think, a continuation of what's going on there right now. So I'm glad to answer any questions or get your feedback
Okay,
as we move forward.
perfect, thank you. Let's hear staff's comments first.
Thank you. So thank you to the applicant for returning to another DRC for their proposed front facade alteration to alter the squared entrance to the porch and introduce a brick detailed arch. The guidelines recommend to preserve original elements and materials on porches and to avoid adding architectural features that are not original to the historic porch. And the guidelines recommend to preserve historic atypical style buildings and architectural details and to not historicize a building to mimic a different period of significance, and to avoid alterations that mix a different architectural style or period, and the proposed alteration adds a detail that is not in keeping with the historic porch. The proposed alteration is not supported by the guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, any thoughts, anyone? Holly?
I think this entry really does need the arch. The green awning, the only thing that I liked about the awning is that it did provide that arch look. And taking it down, I think it just looks like a miss on that front porch, like they made a mistake back when they remodeled this in the first place. So I think your new rendition of it with the kind of a lighter weight brick, top with the keystone, maybe a little smaller of a keystone, not maybe so skinny, but I think this looks perfect. I think this is to me, it looks original, and it looks like it's sort of correcting the mistake that the people that originally remodeled it made with the entry. So I think you did great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, you've got your,
I was going to say the same thing regarding the keystone, that it looks a bit large and maybe could be minimized, but other than that, the new design is consistent with what's already been changed about the house. So in those kind of situations, the guidelines are a little bit difficult to apply strictly, and this is one of those cases, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Mary?
I would agree. I don't know what happens when you cut into the brick. I guess it's fine, but that'd be my only concern. And I feel that what's been said, I think the limestone can still calm down a bit. But other than that, I agree that it fits in with the house.
Well, I agree. I had looked at this and thought, oh, that's a really big keystone. Then when you look at the precedent images, they're all pretty big. Some skinnier, some a little taller, some fatter. One is really, I think this house was redone too, wasn't it? That's not the original. That
Experienced the fire.
Yeah, but the question to this hole being cut, we don't necessarily review that, but what I am concerned about is, okay, is there enough brick going to come out of this wall to do the arch so that we don't have a brand new
I've got the
brick?
I've got the brick.
Okay, so you
came
got
with the
brick to
house.
do it.
I have a brick behind the house that came and we found, and I've talked to my contractor and with his mason, we looked at the count, and we should be really good
Okay,
with the brick.
just making sure that
And it's a specialized brick, so it's not something I can go over to,
you can't get any more of it.
I can't
That's
get
right.
anymore. It's 8-inch brick. It's not what they're building with today, but we have it.
Okay, good.
And
Kathy?
I've got a picture in there of the inside of the
foyer?
Foyer, not that one. It shows, I assume it's in there. Maybe I missed, is that all of them?
I don't think we have a picture of the inside of the vestibule there.
Yeah, I've got one looking up and showing that inside, that ceiling is very, very tall, and I'm not even going to be going up into the attic. I'm actually taking taking drywall out. Because you can see, I'm taking probably 24 inches of 38 to 40 inches of
Wall.
wall that's
Okay.
in there.
Okay.
So it's not,
I think and I've shared this last time, that I think several of us are concerned, like, okay, you take this brick out, but something's supporting all this. There's probably a header of some sort somewhere. Does that have to be cut and a new one put in? And what we're trying to avoid is you all have to show up after this is under construction and go, we got to take the whole face of this front facade down, because we're going to use the same brick and we're going to put it all back and we're going to go, we've heard this before. And we don't want it to snowball into just kind of a big mess
if
of.
it gives you any comfort at all, and it may not, that the contractor we're talking to is very, you know him very well, and he's been on Fair Street. He's on Fair Street now. He's does a lot of jobs in historic Franklin, and I think he knows the ins and outs of what
Yeah.
we're
Okay.
trying to accomplish here, and I think,
And I think you even mentioned to him that that was a concern.
yeah, I did, and he doesn't have that
Specifically.
concern.
Okay.
So from what he's seen, he's looked at it and feels really good about it.
Okay, good. Brian?
Yeah, and I have watched brick and fireplaces be rebuilt. And it's amazing, they just remove certain ones and the weight is still supported. So that's probably what they're going to do here too. I have no comment other than to say what I agree with my fellow commissioners.
I appreciate it. The keystone size is not a hill I would die on. That's just a rendering of what this generally would look like. For the voting meeting, I can certainly tone that down and make it more palatable and be more specific. I can get the drawings and do something that you could actually vote on that was
I think
not just a.
That's important to make sure that we've got some metrics. I mean, even if on these pictures you had a dimension of the opening, I know that's existing, but where's the spring lines start and how tall and how big are these? They're supposed to look like column caps, these, the caps and then the keystone. Just give us some dimensions so that we've never said we had too much information.
And I would suggest, so you see examples already, you've given us photographs of that. So there's a certain ratio to that keystone to what's there now in that arch. If you could find some of those and get the sizes and the ratio to that, and then let your ratio be the same to your project, then you know you're kind of doing what's done in the past.
Yeah, I like that, because I don't want to take off in a direction that you're losing your proportion just to size something down. You know, maybe it needs to be more narrow, but it needs to be elongated. So I want to make sure that's dialed in so it doesn't look like something
Yeah.
else strange happened here.
And let your house tell you where these lines are. Talked about that spring line, you're opening straight, and then it springs. That usually lined up with something. Is it the clerestory window or the transom? Is it the top of the arch to the right? I mean, you kind of got a mixed bag because they
Yeah,
kind of
mixed
threw
bag.
the elevation together. But it may inform, does it want to be 4 inches higher than you showed it there?
Yeah, maybe
And
it's
I know
own
you're using
element.
AI, so it's like, well, but you can see all these have some relationship there in
And-
spring lines and head heights.
2 of those were built as Tudor houses. And
2 were
the one on West Main,
That one.
that one was changed.
That was
You
Victoria.
see the little dormer and the chimneys.
This one that burned? When was that?
Ooh, I don't know. I could guess.
Like in the past 20 years?
Oh, it was
No.
early 1900s.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. And one thing I will say on your rendering that you don't see from the street without the arch is that wonderful transom,
Agreed,
that 6-light transom.
yes.
And I think that's a very striking element.
It's
Yes.
beautiful.
So that's going to help determine some of your spring line too, but
Yeah.
anyway, there's a lot to, you're going to have fun.
All right. Kathy, you have one more?
Yeah,
thing?
one more concern too, and, you know, it's all in the hands of this brick mason, and you found a very good one, I'm sure. But I would be, as much as you have existing brick to reuse, you want to consider the mortar so that it
talked about
would
it.
match and, yeah, in width and thickness and color and all those lovelies as well, but.
There's been some handyman mortar jobs on this house. You can see it on the left above that window, and we're going to fix all those things when the mason's there fixing these things. So we're very sensitive to the problems of the past that we can hopefully take care of while we're there.
But when you come back, if, as Tyler mentioned, bring us a little drawing of what you plan to do and show us some of these dimensions, size that keystone, make a note, you know, we are matching mortar to existing, we're going to be patching here, maybe circle this little area. If you're going to give the front this new emphasis of entry, and you already are saying you're going to clean up some of the other areas that need it, it'd be nice to indicate that as well. So we have that documented.
Perfect. All right. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Quit taking credit for that.
I did all of that myself. I'll send it over.
Yeah.
You just need to come by, see it for yourself.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 4, discussion of an addition and accessory structure at 1008 Fair Street. Jacob Lane is applicant. Looks like we have the owner. All right, come on up.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, how are y'all?
Good.
So we're back with just looking at this detached garage that I know y'all have seen a couple of times now, but we went back and kind of just responded to the comments that I think were made at the last historic zoning meeting. So removed some shed dormers and lowered the height overall. So we're now 1.5 feet below the main ridge. Was there anything else? We changed, we went back and added that gable over the garage doors just to help it kind of communicate better with the detailing of the main house. But would just love y'all's feedback kind of on where we've taken this.
Okay. Perfect. Let's hear from staff.
Thank you, and thank you to the applicant for quickly turning around and submitting another application to this DRC. And the applicant has incorporated feedback from staff and the DRC members, and the complexity of the structure has decreased and the form is increasingly more compatible with the principal building and other historic accessory structures. The proposed height of the accessory structure is subordinate to the principal building at 17 feet 6 inches. In order for the addition to better align with the guidelines, the dormers should be shifted down off of the ridge. The window configuration on the front elevation should be altered to better align with the rhythm and spacing seen on the historic building, and the front entrance reevaluated. The change in roof form over the front entrance creates a somewhat complex form, and the use of a window for the return wall is not appropriate as structures would traditionally, as windows would not traditionally abut corners like this. Additional information will need to be clarified in future applications, including a rendering of the right elevation, lighting specifications, and material specifications, as additional information of how existing walls will remain intact on site throughout the process should be provided to staff as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anybody? Want me to go first?
Well, I
Mary, go ahead.
yeah, I agree with staff comments on the dormer and the front entrance being calmed down. I do think this is better. I'm delighted to see the ridge line come down. So those would be my comments.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I agree with staff here on the dormer as well. It's set back 2 feet from the wall below, it looks like, and, it may get you something to pull that out a foot and look a little more like a typical dormer and get it off the ridge too, which is, helps you in a couple different ways there. This little vestibule with the entry door is a little peculiar. I agree with them that maybe the door ought to just be pushed back to that kind of secondary wall back there. And not to say that I think that little piece of roof being broken off and then it kind of sharing a gutter is going to be a detail in real life that's like, how does all this, it's going to look like the main roof sitting on top of the little roof. And I think it might be more appropriate if that just shed off of this secondary gable and had a bracket or something simple, but to tie the secondary roof to the main roof via this little bridge and then share a gutter is like a little too foreign to any kind of historic district, if that makes sense. You see all those roofs coming together. I think it'd just be cleaner, and if the door's tucked back at that point, just a simple roof extension might get you what you need for cover, but we've never seen a view of this like coming from the house. We had a view looking at the house addition cut through the breezeway, but we've never seen one looking the other way, which is really, if you can see this from the street, that's the view everybody would see, right? So bring that, let's see that. But I agree with Mary, this is much more sensitive in terms of complexity and roof and scale and a lot of things. And I'd refine those garage doors a little more. They're probably not 3 big pieces of glass, on each side. It's probably has some more divisions that relate to the rest of the windows. Anybody else? Anything? Kathy?
Mr. Chair, when I'm looking at page 3, and I'm looking at the pair of garage doors and then the other garage, the single garage door, did the full dimension of that addition get smaller with this proposal than last time? Do you know by how much about?
I don't know off the top of my head. Did it get a little bit smaller, the overall addition? Yeah. I think we did.
Because you've got 13.2 and then 36, 10 and a half.
If that vestibule goes away, it comes down, is it just the original size of the garage then? I'm looking at it lined up above. I guess that's a question.
Well, the original garage is 31, 9.5, and then it shows at the bottom, of course, that's with that little vestibule,
Yeah.
36. So you
Yeah,
think
it's-
that adds the rest of
Yeah,
it?
but it doesn't look like it adds 6 feet.
Wasn't there
Or
another
5 feet.
piece to the right of the double door garages in the last proposal? Another addition that was in front?
Yes.
And it was
And so
longer.
that's been removed?
Yeah,
Okay.
we didn't change the garage footprint. It's the piece to the left of those garage doors that got smaller.
Oh, so that got smaller, and then there was another piece, an addition to the right of the double door garages. Because it was, to me, I think what you brought back was the beauty of the breezeway by doing that. And it gives a pause between the main home and this addition. So I think that was well done, but you still didn't grab it on the other end where you added on. You still made the whole addition smaller than what you presented before, so I think that was well done on that. It reads a lot better. It reads subordinate to the main home from this elevation. So thank you for that. I think that was good.
I think it's going to look like a lot like what it looks like today with a little different roof, but I don't think any of the additions you're going to see anymore without, going in somebody's backyard.
Is this functioning, this back building, as 2 small living units, as a duplex?
No.
No, it's just you want that side entrance to go up above? Is that, I'm just trying to.
That's just entering into a little office space. And then there's some storage up above, but that's all.
Okay.
It's all for it's not two separate living
But-
quarters.
But would getting rid of that, as the chair suggested, harm the function of it?
The vestibule, you mean?
I'm trying to figure out,
It's a really small, that little front area there is the living room. I think it's maybe 13 by 10. It's a very small living space. So having like a dedicated entrance helps with furniture layout and actually be able to put 2 chairs and a couch there. If that gets pushed back, then that just takes space from that living area. So that would kind of prevent a nice furniture layout.
Well, yeah, but same argument can be made that there's a pair of double doors that swing into the same room. You could get outswing doors or a single there could
right?
get you. So yeah, I don't, and we don't review
No, we don't.
anything on the inside.
I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
I was just trying to
Yeah.
make sense
Yeah.
of why.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, those doors both do go into the same space.
They do, yeah.
And Mr. Chair, the breezeway is how tall,
It stays the same as what it is now.
It's all
There's no
existing.
change.
which is,
Do you guys know how tall it is?
It's probably on the other drawing.
Yeah, I think we may have it on some of the existing ones.
Did it say 12.3?
There's the existing.
If not, we will get you that for the next one.
That's to the, that's the top of that piece, the new.
I think anything that can
12,
come
that's the
down
12.
and be functional is a plus.
The breezeway? I think it's all
Yes.
existing.
It's existing,
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
the
well
breezeway.
then there we
No
go.
change to the breezeway.
Yeah.
Less than 12 feet.
Yeah, okay,
And that's to the ridge, so it looks like the,
yeah. So
the
the
porch rack's
edges are,
10 or
yeah.
something like that.
That's correct.
Okay. I think it's a big improvement.
It is.
It's just, it seems like an outbuilding now instead of kind of really a second house, which I know that wasn't necessarily the intention. It's just, it was a lot of mass and complicated shapes. Anything else from anybody? Mary?
the other comment I'd make, if you leave that vestibule, what would be the thought of that maybe being a metal roof to just make it
Yeah, I mean, I
separate?
yeah, I just think the way it ties into the other roof, it's always going
It's
to run
odd.
into it. And so then if you make it a different material, it makes it even
Worse, okay.
worse because
I
it doesn't
believe
really
you.
meld together.
Okay.
And there may be another way to think about that.
Yeah,
With the
yeah.
roofs.
Okay.
I like that idea, though, make it be a metal. But
I mean, I wouldn't, I think you could also take your main gable and pull it across and
That's
put a little
exactly-
post. And then you've got a little cover, but the roof is just really simple because now we don't have any shed. It's just two main roof masses, simple as it can be. So, and then you get a little more attic space too, which is probably
I
good for
was
you all.
Thinking.
So,
about
so look at those, but that, it's not that there's that little shed, it's just that shed's jammed into the corner. And it's not set back far enough to really stay separated from the main roof. It's all gonna run together and kind of turn into a, what's that?
Bringing that little shed dormer, the roof to the ridge accentuates it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay. We good?
you're saying bring the dormer down?
Yes.
Okay.
We can bring it forward.
Yeah, okay.
Guys good? Anything else?
I think, any other questions you have?
Okay. Thank y'all. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
y'all.
All right, we already did number 5. Sure, we can. We got one more. We're going to take 5 minutes.
Okay.
Invitation's the highest form of flattery.
I'll be right back.
I'm taking a free seat.
no, you're
I
not.
am
All right, everyone, welcome back. Let's jump back into our agenda here. Item number 6, discussion of demolition and accessory structure and new construction and accessory structure and an addition on the principal structure at 215 4th Avenue South. Kevin Coffey, welcome. You too.
There we go. Do I go first?
You do go first.
It's been so long, I forgot. So just preface, I inherited this project, and you've probably seen this before fairly recently.
I don't think we've ever seen it.
Really?
Nope.
Really?
Nope.
It looked like, from the stuff that I got, that it had been through here once before, maybe design review, but maybe not.
I don't
So-
recall seeing it in my time, but I've not been here that
That's
long.
probably good then. So there's some stuff I inherited that may or may not be, there's some stuff I inherited that may or may not be, correct, because I assumed there was some baggage associated with this. Just some background, the new addition that we're proposing going on the back of the house is about 47% of coverage. And I'm assuming that the entire existing residence would count in the number. The only small fluctuation with that is there's a chimney you see on that right side that I think is newer. And we're proposing that we remove that. It's not an old chimney. Also, the additions, one thing you'll notice pretty quickly is that I've extended them from the sides a little bit. And kind of the purpose of that is to try to keep from using the entire backyard. What I did was I took the 1/3 front and I split it in two. So the additions aren't maxing out. That would be 14 feet. They're not maxing that out. They're doing a little under half of that on each side, so less than 7 feet from the wide point of the front of the house on each side. We are planning to remove the existing garage. Again, I don't see that as being contributing, and I'm not sure how old it is. I have a feeling it's 70s, maybe 80s. Someone else might know that. It sits almost on the property line, the way it is. So we're proposing, and my garage piece on here is really a placeholder for now. It's really just getting started, so I haven't really gone through that. But just to kind of give you an idea of the scale that we're looking at. We're also proposing a new extension on the upper level to the back that is in the form of kind of a room dormer. It's not really a dormer, it's really more of a hipped extension. I showed two different elevations for the, that's the left side. And we came up, we never stopped working, so even after something's in. So that top drawing is more the direction that I think we're leaning. There's instead of a gable on that addition, I think we want to hip it back so it's a little less noticeable, flows a little more with the house, and keeps the gables toward the front of the house and the right and left side of the older part of the house a little more predominant. It's not competing with those at all. Materials, I think we're likely doing either a stone or a brick base. Obviously, that'll have an economic component involved. I think they would prefer to do stone, and I won't let them do thin stone, so it'll be full veneer. And then lap siding to kind of match the existing construction, probably match the exposure. You'll notice too, there's a little bit of mix and match going on with my drawings because we weren't quite where we wanted it. And some of that has to do with the windows and whether they're mullions and all of them or not. And we had a couple different experiments. I'm inclined on all the addition areas to not do mullions in the windows. There's kind of a mix on the house already, and I think that would set the additions apart from the existing house. You'll see on that drawing over to the left, there was a little area where they enclosed part of a porch, and those are double hung windows that are just 1/1. So those are kind of the outlier. And then, they had divided lights in part of it, but that's a discussion we can have, on how far we go with that or whether we just leave it as simple as just 1/1. Screen porch I have on here, the owner may want to enclose that, and if they do, I would probably do a series of double hungs that make it look more like an old school enclosed porch with either a panel on the bottom or a small fixed panel of glass on the bottom. I think that pretty much covers what I have. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'm good there. Love to hear your comments. I think on the garage area, when we work on that, I think I'll probably set those dormers back a little bit more than they are on this drawing, especially on this side, so those high transoms won't have as much space below them, but we'll hone in on that as
Okay.
we go along.
Okay, let's hear from staff.
The building that is located at 215 4th Avenue South is a contributing building that was constructed circa 1890. The proposal is to demolish the existing accessory structure and add an addition to the principal building. The age of the existing accessory structure is not known or listed in the National Register, but is shown on aerials from 1999. Based on the 1950 Sanborn map, an accessory structure has always been in that proposed location, but it was smaller in size. It is unknown what the historic footprint of the principal building is to understand if the proposed addition aligns with the guidelines for size of additions to historic residential buildings. From looking at the existing photos, it is clear that a rear addition has been built previously. The proposed addition does not align with the guidelines for appearing subordinate. The visibility of the street, the form, roof complexity, the potential size, and the chimney is not subordinate. And there was one project consideration left by our colleagues in Building and Neighborhood Services, and it is a questioning if the garage and its use and if it is intended to be an accessory dwelling. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any thought about the garage yet?
No, I think they're just going to do a couple offices up there, storage, so not a dwelling.
Okay. All right, let's start with some comments, if anybody has any. Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I tend to agree with staff on the oversize of this. Certainly, when you come down the street and you see the front of the house, we see the addition on both sides of the existing existing home. And so that's kind of a massing issue for me as well. So I think when you come before us again, is there any way you could reduce that so that it's less of a mass? Not sure about that, but that is a problem from that Front Street elevation where we see the addition overlapping on both. I think if it can get tucked behind the existing building, it would be better serviced to meet the guidelines.
I feel like the front elevation is kind of a liar on this one because there's no way you're going to see both of those at the same time. From the sidewalk and the angle and the depth that those are behind the front. So the one on the right is almost 80 feet back from the front of the house. 7811, and the one on the other side is about 51 feet back where it starts to go out. So I feel like just parallax, like obviously if you're on one side of the house, you'll be able to see the extension, but you'll never see both of those at the same time. So I guess you could, if you could get across the street and way back somehow, you might be able to perceive those both at the same time. Now, as to whether they could get smaller, things can always get a little smaller, that's,
What are the guidelines for side additions? He alluded to a third rule. What is,
The guidelines do recommend, to try and tuck it behind the main form of the house, but if that is not feasible, then you can have it to the side, but it should not project a third of the width of the main elevation of the building.
okay.
so that was that calculation where the main front of the building is, let's see, where did I do that? 42 feet 2, and so a third of that's 14 feet. And so I split the difference, and each side is less than 7 feet. So really combined, they don't even hit the 14. I'm not even sure that that's the intent of the guideline.
Yeah, I don't, I've never had anybody try to divvy it up. I know that projects have gone to other jurisdictions, and it's definitely not, it's not been interpreted that way. As a matter of fact, a lot of other jurisdictions, it says you can go one side or the other. And a lot of jurisdictions will let you go a little taller and or out the sides, but they won't let you do both taller and wider. So there's all these, I think the intent was that it would come out a side, but I'd like to hear from everybody else.
Well, I do feel like, the first question is it necessary? And my argument is the reason I pushed that square footage to the sides is that we want to preserve a little bit of the backyard. It's already pretty full of driveway the way it is. And I feel pretty strongly about the location of the garage accessory. Now, it could push back as well some, but I just like it being hidden back there behind everything and not being real apparent from the street. So we do have kind of a side yard situation on this, which is not typical. It's almost like a lot and a half. So that's kind of my reasoning there, is to not push too far into the property and leave a little bit of backyard.
Anybody else have thoughts on this one?
Well, I'll
Mary?
just disclose that this is the house I moved to when I moved to Franklin. So I know every inch of this house. And where you're proposing the garage was a chicken coop. And where right back behind the house, there was an exquisite little outbuilding that at some point was torn down, I guess, before historic zoning. It was a one-car garage and a servant's quarters. So I did not realize that had been torn down.
I didn't include it, but I think the Sanborn map
Yeah, and then,
shows like either 2 or 3. I think both of the ones that I had access to showed 2 or 3 outbuildings.
outbuildings,
kind
right.
of interspersed
Well, one of
in
them
the
would have been the
backyard.
chicken coop. The other one would have been that small garage, and then there's a children's playhouse. I don't think the additions have the character. I can understand wanting to bring that ridge line back, knowing the house, but how it's executed on the vertical members of it, to me, is just doesn't suit this, like the bay window and all the stone coming up, to me, does not suit the character. It differentiates almost too much in my mind.
Okay.
Yeah, and to continue with that line of thought, I really, the additions too tall. I think it is too large for the house. It does not reflect the house, really, or the neighborhood. And if you look on each side of this house, I mean, the thing about this house that's a little different than some of the others down Fourth Avenue South, they're a little closer together. There's a lot of space in between the house that's on the corner and then the house where the Butlers are in. You're going to be able to see a lot around this house. I mean, it's going to be very visible about what is seen. It's not going to be hidden way back in the back of a lot somewhere. And I really think there's a lot of revision and a lot of more thinking about, you know, what you do to that addition on the back that complements the star, which is the house. And not building half the house again, almost to the rear with that large garage. So I cannot support what I'm actually seeing, especially in that left side elevation.
Do you feel that the garage is one of the main pieces that is straining that?
I don't. I see the gable, the second gable that's off kind of in the middle at the
So
very behind.
that's the one I was changing to a hip.
I also see how tall, it's almost like a second story at the back. And I mean, this is not a two-story house, but it gives you the impression of two stories at the back. I just think that it's not, it needs to appear as though it complements the historic structure and doesn't overwhelm it.
Lisa, do you have anything?
Very well articulated, I must say, by my fellow commissioner. And the other part of what I'm struggling with is being able to picture this within the context of where it is. So next time around, I just find actual photographs very, very helpful. The context on the street. Brian mentioned the next door properties, and I don't know really what they look like. So all of that is very important as we look at this, instead of just the graphic part. And then, of course, the aerial view is also important.
Yeah, Emily, can you bring up a Google map aerial that kind of shows that corner and kind of what the neighborhood looks like? And you might want to show kind of the overall, that is good too, but kind of above the aerial view as you pull back. It just kind of gives a scale of the rest of the houses on that block. It's slow, I know it.
While it's loading, there is a historic photo that we found and, but due to the technical difficulties of things, with today's technology, we weren't able to pull that up to share, but there is a historic photo, I think from 1920s-ish, that we'll send to you with, the recap.
Holly, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was actually wondering if you had a drawing of the front, like looking straight on with the addition versus without. I didn't see that.
Should be page 4.
Yeah, I think they're both in there. I don't know that I compared those or if they are.
I think they're hatched in a way you can kind of tell it. One slide up from there.
Like
Right there.
with the original though, like, can we see the difference between the original, like what it looks like?
There's a drawing of the original. Yeah, of that view. That one had the additions on it.
So everything hatched there was new and everything that's
Right.
not hatched. Okay.
It's in that other folder. I think there's one that says existing conditions. Down, probably. Your other down. Is that it? Just those three? Oh, I guess it's not in there then. So if you go back to that front elevation, right there. So really, the parts that I've added are the ones that are hatched. That piece, and then that one, what I intend, that roof's not gonna stick up like that. That was gonna have a hip roof on it. But in general, the way the house looks is that main portion. What you're missing there too is that the right side really jogs in and comes in and then jogs back out as you go back down the right side.
It was looking like the roof in the back was taller and you could see it from the front, like the height of it. Is that not right? You
No,
can't-
everything's hidden behind that. Everything I'm adding is shorter than that main roof. That main room dormer on the back is probably 2.5 feet below that top ridge, 2.5 feet, something in there. So everything, you would not see any of that from the front.
To me, the house right now altogether, even with all the roof lines, I think has just a really charming look to it. And I think the addition just doesn't have the charm where I understand wanting to make it bigger, and I think that there's probably a way to do that without ruining it, but sometimes these smaller houses, when you start putting on huge additions on the back, they just look like a garage stuck to the back of a cute house. And so I don't know. I think it's ruining the charm of it. So if there's a way to do it that doesn't ruin the charm, then I think that would be obviously preferable. But I think sometimes part of the charm is just the fact that it's not a giant house, you know? So I don't know if, you guys have comments about how you would do that where it still preserves that kind of all-around look from all sides, where it looks like a charming house from all sides, rather than only being charming from the front and then having the sides look like just, they just have no detail that really makes any historic sense.
Well, I will say that getting rid of that chimney that was added not that long ago is a big plus on the back room. So
When do you think that chimney was added?
it must have been added in, I'm guessing in maybe the late 80s. And then the porch enclosure, the way it is been changed. It was double hung windows that's on the back.
There's pretty much stone foundation under just about all of it.
You're right.
So it looks like, early additions were then modified later on, and I don't know exactly
That's
what
right.
those years are.
Could have been a porch or something turned
Yeah, a lot
into
of enclosed
rooms.
porches. And there's some kind of janky, enclosed
I
spaces.
I guess the way I see it, the back elevations being completely changed, then the side elevations being changed, and then the other side elevations being changed. So the only thing that isn't changed is the front view.
It's changing a little bit.
And I mean,
Yeah.
that, the
Well, I'm
front
not
porch
modifying
part
any
is not
detail on the
changed.
front.
Right. Well, I think I agree with most everything that's been said, that it's a lot. I think interpretation of the 1/3 rule coming out both sides is probably too generous an interpretation. I think, and I'm sort of thinking of this project in a more kind of nuclear mode than maybe everybody else is, but part of this is to demo the existing garage, which, if we can show that it's not contributing and not old, then great. I think that makes perfect sense. Then we talk about we're going to put a new one back, and that's when I go, okay, our guidelines talk about typical placement of that, and I think it's not the right place to put it all the way around the back of the house on the opposite side of the driveway. I think it should be at the end of the driveway, which is the traditional location of outbuildings in a historic district. And if you were to do that, now all of a sudden, what does the addition look like? Does it tuck behind differently? And do you have to think about all that massing a little bit differently because of where the garage is? And does it help you accomplish some of these things with your backyard? Kind of wanting to keep some of that. Don't know the answer to that. And then the back, I think Brian hit the nail on the head that there's a second story. And, we've looked at some other projects that have had this same kind of second story added on the back. I'm very sympathetic to the idea that hip roof houses are very hard to add on space on the back. You've done it many times. I've had to do it many times. It's tough. But what I think could be maybe, and specifically with his hip roof houses, is you kind of got to design it from the outside in because it is such a hard mass to deal with. The existing is not, but I could see a roof form matching the pitch that's in the front and even sharing a face one side or the other, coming straight back, not as tall as the original, and it being hipped in the back with a dormer or even gabled in the back, just something really simple, and build off of that as just an extension out the back. Right now, it's kind of got these, it's like these sphinx arms, and you've had to bridge in between, which is not a bad way to do it, but I'm not sure that you're getting favorable feedback on bumping out both sides.
Yeah. Pretty much changes everything.
Yeah, I think you got to think of it keeping the mass more centered behind the house, and then the guidelines are clear that you really have to make a case that I really need to go out the side because I can't go back, and going out both sides is for me is just a non-starter in terms of interpreting the guidelines. And then, like I said, I challenge the placement of the garage. Is like, if you really are serious about getting backyard back, unpave it all. It's all paved right now. So I'm like, I'm not super sympathetic to the idea that we need to go out both sides because we want more backyard. It's like, well, it's just paving. If you move the garage, maybe it's not as much paving. And then I maybe concede to the fact that, we are really trying to save something green, not a motor court. Does that make
I can
sense?
see that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, I guess in my mind, I thought that actually splitting the 14 feet would be more palatable than doing a big chunk on one side, which even I don't want to do. I don't
Yeah.
want to come out that far. To me, that doesn't make sense. So,
Well, and you may, this house has bays that bump out. So like matching those, one of the best practice things that, comes out of the Department of Interior standards is keeping our outside corners of the back of the historic house. I'm not sure anybody knows what that corner would be, but we do know from your design that at least one of them would be covered up, right? And it's
the
like,
one at the kitchen side.
yeah. So it's like, well, really, if we hold to the Department of Interior standards, you would need to start an offset there and then come out the side or something like that. So consider those things as you're relooking at this. I think, your plans are beautiful. It's just there's a lot of massing, and because of all these ins and outs, it has resulted in a complicated roof line, right? And then, like I said, we've got this, what's going to be a new garage in a non-traditional location. You know, at some point, if there was a carriage house there, which there was something there, it was a, 2 wagon wheel trails, not a motor court. So it's just a different thing now, and I think it should be considered differently.
Well, I would point out, though, that there's a mixed bag on that street too. And I can't picture the exact houses, but it's something that went in there when I was in the backyard, is at least the house 2 houses down. And not that it's great or anything, but it strings very far back into the site, and there's a few of them that do that. The house to the left is really kind of it's used more for commercial purposes, I think, because it's all parking lot over there, basically. So I do think that there is precedent to string that along in the back a little bit more than maybe you're thinking. So just like next time you drive down that street, just take a glance over there and look, and, maybe intuitively you come up with something different than I do. But to my mind, I think there is precedent for really pushing that back. And we've done that several times, over on Lewisburg and other places pretty close where we've kind of strung that.
And I don't mind it being that far back. I think we have metrics for that. It's the side of the property that it's on that I think is, you got your driveway on one side and you're going all the way around the house and having to pave the whole backyard to use it. That's the non-traditional use of an outbuilding, when usually they were at the end of the driveway of some sort, whether, and some of them were front-loaded, but a 3-car garage is hard to front-load.
I concede that.
Yeah, so it's, look at it. I don't know the solution, and I'm grateful that it's not our job to figure out the solution.
Well, I would like to just say, how I view that house, especially from the side, and we see the 2 side views, proposed right side elevation proposed, and the existing right side elevation. And so what you see is the house starts out in its form and it rises towards the middle. So you peak at that very middle. And on the back, you have this dormer. And I consider that dormer an integral part of the historic part of that house. And I don't think that dormer should go away.
The
And then
existing one.
the existing dormer, and then you come down. So if you're coming down, you may have room, to run your addition out towards the back with some kind, of offsets or what you do with that. But I think to join another section of roof to the house and eliminate that rear dormer is actually a mistake to the historic character of the house. And that, if you could kind of follow that historic line of the house, you might find it more successful in the addition that you're doing. That's all I can offer.
Yeah, I can see Brian's point on that, but I also know that our guidelines and the Department of Interior standards say that's where you should take things off.
Exactly.
I mean, nobody'd be able to add anything if we kept all the old fabric on the back of the house. So yes, but it's difficult to do anything to any house if you're going to go by
Do you
that.
feel the addition needs to offset from the main roof?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's what's making the drawing look complicated, is that it's
Yeah.
offset. That's
Yeah.
one of the things, anyway.
Well, your roof plan, I know the offset's part of it, but there's a whole lot of roof plan going on with the
Yeah, it is overwhelming, the
hips
roof
on hips
plan,
on
you're
hips
right.
and big, long shed roof that bridges the 2 hips. It's a lot going on. But like I said, you and I both worked on these kind of projects. The hip roof historic house is like the hardest thing to hook anything onto, because it's pretty revealing kind of silhouette. It just is.
Well, I've also got program.
Yeah.
I've got to
Yeah, you
get
got to fit
in there somewhere.
things in here. Yeah.
And while the Department of Interior does give, that is a good space to add on, a good place to the rear of the house, I think with our historic guidelines, we also have to think about what fits the neighborhood. What size of an addition you put on now is out of scale to the neighborhood. And the house you're referring to is the McGavick House, I think. And it's where the Greens live today. And I have lunch there every Tuesday. So, and the way they've done that house, it's not overwhelming. I mean, it's an original structure, and then it has a very, nominal addition on the back, and then they've used some of their roof space for a second story without building a huge, they've really integrated it very well without looking like, what I see here.
Yeah. Yeah, ultimately, I think it needs to be attic build out, right? Not full two-story walls anywhere, which is the way it reads now. So,
Okay.
anything else, anybody? Okay, gave you a lot.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you.
appreciate it. Okay. Staff, you have some announcements for us?
So, yes, during the week of November 18th and 19th, there will be an open house, 2 community open house meetings, and they are seeking direction and goals for the preservation plan update. And there will be a focus meeting one evening just for historic preservation. And the next evening will focus just on battlefields and Civil War-related topics. And once the times are confirmed, we will share these with you all. And so you can mark them down on your calendar to attend and review goals and provide input on more or different goals that you'd like to see related to the preservation plan. And one other update for you all. Blake, that serves as the attorney here for the Historic Zoning Commission, he has accepted a new job elsewhere. And so he wanted me to share with you all that the Historic Zoning meeting that he was at this past month, that was his last meeting. So we wish Blake well, and we will be expecting probably, I'm not sure who will be our intermediate liaison from the law department, but
Probably Bill.
best wishes to Blake and whoever we have. Great,
Yeah. Perfect.
thank you.
All right.
And I have an announcement. So the Historical Society is having a meeting on the 26th of October. So that's next Sunday from 3 to 5, and it will be at Meeting of the Waters. So that is probably the finest example of a residential federal house which still has its original moldings and mantels and almost really footprint. So you're invited from 3 to 5.
Thank you.
3200 Del Rio Pike. There's a historic marker in the front yard that says Meeting of the Waters.
Or you can get on the river, and where the waters meet, you get out. All right. Anything else? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.